Welcome to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. I'm Kari Hawker Diaz, and I have been looking forward to sitting down with Jeanette with Food Justice Coalition for a very long time. So thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to see you. Okay, Jeanette, let's dive right into it. Can you tell us what the Food Justice Coalition is and how it actually got started?
Yes, I'd love to. So the Food Justice Coalition is a 501c3 nonprofit that focuses on creating culturally competent and nutrient-dense prepared meals for Utahns experiencing hunger. We exist as an immediate resource to be connected with food that is already prepared and really nutrient-dense because we're looking out for Utahns' heart health and their overall health. We also focus on education and advocacy, and we have 3 programs since our founding in December of 2020.
Wow. Okay, and so 2020 is when it got started. What led up to that?
You know, this is one of my favorite stories to tell because it's not what you would think necessarily. So we got started in December of 2020 with a Christmas dinner that was supposed to just be a Christmas dinner. I was new to Utah and I was feeling very alone in Utah, and so I decided to focus on giving back. And I raised some money. I asked the public for about $400 in donations, and people from across the country responded with about $4,000, $4,200, something like that, in a matter of 2 days. And so I had all this money to put on a Christmas dinner for people experiencing homelessness. And so, you know, I did that with the help of some volunteers, and I had all this money left over. So I thought, well, I'll just make more food and give it away, and I'll do that till the money runs out. And so that's what I did. And I kept posting photos of what we were doing, and that led people to send us more money. So we made more food, and so people sent more money, and that cycle never stopped. And here we are, you know, in 2026.
Good problem to have, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Why is this cause so important to you personally?
It's a very personal cause because it's something that I've been through. Growing up, when, you know, my family moved here from Mexico when I was 5 years old, we experienced a period of homelessness and of hunger. And though I was 5, and for reference, I'll be 37 this year, I remember those days like it was yesterday. And I say that every year whenever I do any type of interview, and I mean it every single time. That time is so vivid in my memory. I can recall in really great detail where we were staying. It was this old, dark, drafty building that we weren't supposed to be living in. I remember the concrete floor. I remember, you know, there was this white bin sink in the bathroom that was leaky, and I remember all these great details. And I think that goes to show you what an impact, you know, a situation like that has on a child. Mm-hmm. And I now, as a parent, my daughter's currently 8, I can't fathom how parents go through those situations with their children. And it speaks to my parents, you know, great, you know, resilience and care and love for us. But the reality is that so many families here in America are going through that reality today, and that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story. You can see why it's very deeply personal to you to do this, Jeanette. And since you started the Food Justice Coalition, how has it grown or changed since like the very beginning? What are we in, like 6 years now, I guess? 6 years?
Yeah, we're going into year 6. And so it's changed quite a lot. You know, this started as a grassroots mutual aid style form of giving back. And since then, we have formalized a bit. I am really intentional about keeping some of our grassroots mutual aid style because it allows us great flexibility. And then in the nonprofit space, to be really impactful, you need to be flexible. You need to be quick. So I'm really proud of what we've built, you know, and I say we because this work is not mine alone. It's the work of thousands of people, our volunteers, our donors, people like you that have us on so we can, you know, share about our programs and get more people connected to our services. So it's changed quite a bit. We used to be a little bit more informal. You know, we used to do one simple thing. Now we have 3 programs that include, you know, direct service, education, and advocacy efforts. And we also do, you know, formal things now, like asking the state of Utah for money. And, you know, last year was our first legislative quest from the state, and they provided us with an appropriation. So it was our first time asking, and we won, which is rare. And so
you gotta always ask, right?
Yeah. And so I think that speaks to the quality of our work and the belief that our legislators have in us as a team, as an organization. And, you know, we're back at it again this year. We're in the process of submitting another request. And so there's a lot of things that we've done to kind of formalize and to grow, including things like grant writing. You're getting ready to publish a cookbook, which will, you know,
amazing.
Available to the public. Yes. So there's a lot of growth. And so it's been incredible. It's been an incredible journey.
The 6 years strong. And I know you're planning on just moving forward as long as you need to, to help others. And your work focuses on food security, education, advocacy. How do these pieces fit together in your day-to-day operations?
Oh, I love this question. So one of our more popular volunteerships is being in our kitchen and helping us prepare food. And what we hear from those that come in to help us do this is that they love seeing how we take raw ingredients and in a matter of almost 3 hours, we turn them into hundreds of nutrient-dense, vibrant, prepared meals that go out to the client that same day and that often are consumed that same day.
Yeah.
So you get to see this whole process right before your eyes. And so what's happening during that process is that, you're cutting onions and carrots and celery and you're adding things like oregano and parsley and, tomato paste and garlic and all these very
clean ingredients.
Very clean, very healthy, and just like these things just smell nice and they get you excited about food. And then you get to talk to our team, our chef, our program coordinator who are on site, and you get to learn from them about why they do this work and why it's so important. And you get to learn about the ingredients, like the fact that we work with local farmers and we get organic, locally grown produce.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And, again, this is a we, right? This is our local farmers working with us to give us a great price on these vegetables and then often donating the vegetables or donating things like bread. Shout out to the C9 crew. They have fantastic focaccia bread and they're really generous with us about donating that. And then farmers like, Tyler at Keep It Real Vegetables produces some of the best produce I've ever had in my life.
Go Tyler.
Yes, he's incredible. His team's incredible. So you get to hear about how this local food is making a real impact right now, right? And you get to work with that food and you get to, be part of this process that is deeply impactful right now.
Did you know how to make these meals originally? I mean, imagine like before you had a chef or somebody, were you just like doing what you could?
Yeah. That's a great question. No, I grew up cooking. I come from a very large Mexican family and we love to cook. And so I started cooking when I was 7 years old. And when I was in my 20s, I became a private chef. And my goal with the organization was to create really, beautiful, healthy meals for people who can maybe not afford to buy something like that very often because they come at such a high price. And so the same meals that I was creating for my private clients who were paying me a lot of money to do this private service, I just took those same recipes and started making them for the general public and at no cost, right?
Wow.
Because the underlying, one of our foundational beliefs at the coalition is that food is a human right and that everyone deserves the same quality of food, regardless of your ability to access. Like one access should be there, but we should aim to have really high quality food for everyone.
It's so true. So true. And I imagine you have a chef or two or three now
right.
to be able to help you with that.
We do. Now we have a chef. It used to be me in the very beginning. And right now we have a chef. His name is Jaime. If you've ever been, to Yoko Taco, you would have seen him there behind the line.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. And he, both on the, working with volunteers and the way he chefs, like he's just great. And so
amazing meals.
We're happy to have him.
Yeah. You've got a good team. Okay. Jeanette, can you explain the idea of food sovereignty and why it's so important to communities?
Yeah. So food sovereignty just means, that everyone should have the ability and the freedom to make food choices that are best for them and their family. And part of food sovereignty is also food justice, which means that we have to look out for, the way we treat the environment, the way that we grow our food, the way that we compensate workers who are picking the food and growing the food. We have to look at the food system in a holistic way. But so food sovereignty means that the access has to be there and the affordability has to be there. And then that you get to pick whatever you decide is best for you and your family. So at the coalition, we are a completely 100% plant-based entity. And the reason for that is so that we can fight health disparities, especially amongst populations that are the most impacted by access to, a lack of access to healthcare. And these are typically Black and brown communities. And so food is our way of fighting those health disparities. However, you don't have to be plant-based or vegan or even vegetarian or anything to participate in our program. Our program is for everyone. And you can think of it as, a supplement. You can think of it as a way to access more fruits and vegetables or to access something prepared if you don't have the time to prepare your own healthy meals or you're facing food insecurity. And so, that's what we're aiming for is true food sovereignty, that you just have choice. You should have choice.
You have choice. It's amazing when you do have like that healthy meal that's like rich in nutrients and clean, and the difference it makes not only in your health, your physical health, but your mental health as well. Like you just feel so much better.
Absolutely. And now in recent years, we've started to see the direct correlation between gut health and mental health. We have more data coming out, right? More studies that are showing that direct link. And so I think I also see a trend of the general public paying more attention to that and feeling that in their bodies.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
kind of slowing down and trying to be more intentional about their diet. We see a lot more people going vegetarian, going plant-based or part-time plant-based. And so I think that's the right way that this should be trending. We should be paying more attention to it. And I'm happy to see people choosing more fruits and vegetables because your health really is where everything stems from. Your ability to, show up well for you and your loved ones and your children if you have them, and your ability to show up, healthy for work and be able to have a good day and not be stressed out, or your ability to better manage your stress, right? So it all stems from having good health. And so that's what we focus on.
Kind of the foundation of everything. You're
Absolutely.
right. Okay, Jeanette, let's talk about community here in Utah specifically. How big of a problem is food insecurity in Utah? And I don't think people realize how big of a problem it actually is when you're not seeing it.
Yeah. In Utah, food insecurity is rising. And it's kind of, interesting to see this because Utah is such a wealthy state and there is so much philanthropy here. And yet philanthropy alone cannot solve this issue. So to give you some numbers, according to Feeding America, Utah has about 480,000 people that are facing food insecurity. And that's 1 in 8 adults and 1 in 7 children.
That's a lot. That's too much.
Of that 480, about 161,000 are children. And so that means that if, you look out your street and you count every, 8 houses, you have people in your community who are very likely facing food insecurity to some degree.
That was a very well painted picture. If in your neighborhood you count every 8 houses, someone is struggling.
Yeah. And it's hard to see this issue, right? And you can't look at someone and just know whether they're food insecure or not. That's a really hard thing to pinpoint in someone.
You never want to assume, you never want to,
And because of the shame and the stigma that's associated, people go to great lengths to hide it. The best thing that we can do to help combat this is to just be a good neighbor, a good friend, and support people when we know or when we see that there's an issue, just kindly, very gently bringing it up and saying, if you need resources, I'm happy to help you navigate, or how would you like to be helped,
Sure.
And then sharing resources, even if you don't have a conversation with somebody, but you see a post from, a free resource that's sharing food, share it on your social media, send it out to your community, just share the resources because you never know who's dealing with this.
That's a good idea. We're just such a big social media society now, so just share something, share a resource.
Absolutely.
Who benefits most from your programs, and what kind of difference are you seeing in the community?
We see a lot of households with children, and the majority of the people that we are serving are individuals who are experiencing a pretty severe food insecurity. The people that we serve are very diverse. We have people that are living with a disability. Some individuals have reported to us that they can't stand for prolonged periods of time, and this has kind of been constant throughout the years. Every year we get people who are living with MS or ALS or have some type of structural issue. That's not those two, but where they have a hard time standing up and preparing a meal, right? And so being able to have something that is healthy and that is already prepared really saves them time, it saves them effort, and obviously it saves them money.
Sure.
And so we also have students. We have students that are full-time but living with food insecurity, and we know that college students, about 30% of college students face some form of food insecurity. And so that is a time in your life when you're supposed to be, so well fed because you're really focusing so much on academia, and it's a lot, it's strenuous, and you're growing, and so you should be able to have access to, a healthy diet. And so we have a lot of students, we have a lot of part-time students that are also working. We have a lot of parents that are also, working and supporting a family. We have right now a lot of SNAP recipients because their benefits have started to get cut down since November 1st of last year with the passing of the Big Beautiful Bill. And so we have a very diverse pool of individuals that we serve, but our average client makes about $18,500 a year. So it's pretty severe, socioeconomic disadvantages that they're facing, and it's the resources that they've relied on in the past are starting to shrink. And again, this is not something that nonprofits alone can solve. We really need our government officials to be there and to fund federal programs that are a lifeline for so many.
Do you see this getting better?
You know, the little hope that I have currently in these times wants to say yes, because I think we should always hold on to hope. And I believe in our communities. And so what we've seen right now is, you know, our communities, so many individuals in our communities stepping up to help wherever they can.
Yeah.
From volunteering to donating, you know, a few cans of food, and just in so many different ways. And so I think maybe the food system will take a while to get better, but the way communities respond to these issues, that improvement is happening right now.
Yeah. And in our Utah community, like, we stand up, we show up, we give and we help. And I think we're known for that. So I love that. There's always this hope, and there always should be hope for change, for it to get better. Is there anything else you wanted to say with that?
Yeah, this is such a large systemic issue. You know, it's not just an issue about how we produce food. It's also, you know, who controls that food, and where does corporate responsibility come in? We were talking about, you know, food chains and food prices, right? And then how does like policy affect where markets get placed, and where, you know, what the price of, you know, water for, you know, our farmers is going to be, and for those that are, you know, utilizing culinary water maybe, right? So it's such a multifaceted issue, and so we have a long way to go. But I believe that as a state and even as a nation, we're becoming far more informed on all of these issues, and I see great people doing great work, and so that gives me a lot of hope.
Well, like you're doing great work. Jeanette, you really are. What you do is so appreciated and crucial. What role, let's talk about maybe education for a minute. What role does education and advocacy play in your approach to solving food insecurity?
It plays a huge issue. You know, when you think about food through the lens of education, it's a whole spectrum, right? Everything from teaching people about their health and how food impacts their health, that alone can be, you know, an entire entity of its own, right? There's so much to know, simply because we don't learn a lot about our health in school. And then you enter, you know, the workforce, and then you start building your family, and you just don't have that knowledge. And you see that knowledge disparity kind of across, you know, the nation, and also here in Utah, because of the rates of diabetes and heart disease and, you know, really preventable diseases that rely on diet and lifestyle. And so, you know, if we put like mobility aside and, you know, being active, and we just focus on diet can be such a trigger for so many different types of ailments. And so even if you're suffering from or predisposed for something like diabetes, if your diet and lifestyle changes, that genetic expression won't happen the same way, right? And so there's a fantastic doctor, his name is Dr. Michael Greger, and he's got like a series of books, but what he often says in his books and in interviews is diseases run in families because diets run in families.
Ooh. And that hits home.
So many of us, right?
Yeah.
We repeat the patterns that we were taught in our home, and our food patterns, right, are, you know, drinking enough water, being active. You kind of grow up a certain way, and it doesn't change too much unless you have the education on how important that is, or, you know, a very intentional kind of shift, you know, in either direction, away or towards being more health-minded. And so education plays a huge role. So one of the things that we do is we partner with really incredible entities like the Black Physicians of Utah. You know, we've partnered many times in the past to have educational events where we'll do like a film screening or a documentary screening that talks about health, and then we'll have like a panel discussion to discuss what we saw and to take questions from the audience. And what I've heard so often from the audience are questions around diet, you know, because that's a factor that we can all control. And so that alone is so incredibly powerful. And then the other pieces of education are skill-based for us. So things like cooking classes. We try to do cooking classes, you know, like once a quarter at least, to show people like basic knife skills, basic food preparation, right? How to mince an onion quickly so it's not tedious and messy and you're struggling with it and then you don't want to cook because this is awful, right?
Yeah, it's not fun.
Exactly. So we teach, you know, like how to sharpen your knife, because having, you know, the proper tools, and they're simple. You just need a really good chef's knife. You can do a lot with that. So we teach on that, and then we teach very simple recipes that can be made in one big pot with just a few ingredients that are wholesome and affordable.
So it's not overwhelming.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's affordable, easy, and quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Needed that. Jeanette, can you share a story that really highlights the impact your organization has made?
Yes,
I'm sure there's many.
Yeah, there are. So I'm trying to think of what's maybe a recent one. It's hard to pick one just really. I was just looking over our data for all the request forms that we take. I was doing this last night, and I was looking at thousands and thousands of meal requests just over the last 6 months. Rather than just focusing on one story, I'd love to share what we see repeatedly to kind of illustrate illustrate how similar we are. And so what we often see are, we have a form, right, to taking these meal requests, and there's a blank section on the form where you can just write anything that you want to tell us, anything at all. And most people use that form, that piece of the form, to tell us thank you, to express gratitude. And it's not necessary, it's not required, right? We don't expect it, but just kind of organically, like 90% of people use that to just say thank you and to give us a message of gratitude. And in combination or in place of that, they'll usually tell us a bit of their story. And the stories are, we just don't have enough money to make ends meet, and I don't know how I'm going to feed my children. I don't know how I'm going to feed, my wife and children. There was a grandmother that said I'm raising my 4 grandchildren on her own on a very limited income. And so all these stories have so much in common. And what I think is a really kind of like harmful, piece of language that I've seen over and over the years is that people who are on these programs are lazy, and the system is bloated, and that we can cut funding because these people just need to get to work.
That's so not true.
And it's the opposite of that.
True. Yeah.
These are hardworking American people who don't have the same lot as some of us and the same circumstances, right? And they really do need assistance, and they're trying their best to not need assistance. And for a lot of them, the assistance is temporary. We see clients come in and they'll be with us for a few weeks or a few months or maybe a year, and then we don't see them again, or we don't see them for a long time. It's very few clients who use our program continuously.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I really want to just highlight how those stigmas are incredibly harmful, because people really are trying their best, and the last thing we need to do is kick them when they're already down.
That's a good reminder. Thank you for that. What are some of the biggest obstacles you face in addressing food insecurity and inequality?
One of the obvious ones is funding, just bringing in enough money. It constantly feels like we're like building the plane as we fly it. And so it's really difficult to focus on being more impactful in our programs when we're constantly also having to raise the money. That's a big issue. The other issue is kind of just more systemic, stepping outside of the nonprofit and looking at how we got to this place, right? The way that we see it and often, teach it is these are policy failures, and these are frankly failures of the free market. And it's hard to address these quickly and at once, right? These are issues that take years to solve, but where the root of this issue really is in pay inequality and, giving people a livable income. That's where all this stems from.
There's issues when you're working, you're being paid, but you're not able to afford food.
Yes. And, for the longest time, the American dream was, you work a job and you work hard, you go to school, you should be able to buy a home. And so much of your generational wealth will come from having a stable home and being able to be a homeowner, right? And that's just not the reality these days for so many without that kind of baseline. And with, housing being increasingly unaffordable, everything else is also unaffordable. We're seeing inflation still really high, but it becomes harder to afford everything else when your housing has to be 40, 50, sometimes 60% of your income. That's just an impossible situation. And so we really need to think about as individuals and as collectives how we do work to fight that inequality, right? How do we get people an affordable wage so that they can just afford to live and to live a good life, not just scrape by.
Right.
And so, that's not the core of the work that we focus on, but we do weave that education and that advocacy in our education program as we do lectures and classes, and because it's a big part of this, it is the root of this issue.
Yeah. Well, and as hunger grows, the need for the meals obviously grows, and you are working on building a new kitchen and expanding operations. How will that change what you can do for the community?
Having our space would be just so incredibly impactful in terms of helping us do more with less. Kitchen rent is expensive, and there will come a time where we kind of meet the capacity in the kitchen that we're currently in. So if we want to operate more, if we want to operate, 5 days a week, we would need a space that can allow us to do that and to allow us to kind of grow our capacity from a couple hundred meals to 500,000 meals a day. And to pay for that, at a commercial or commissary kitchen, that's thousands and thousands of dollars every month. And so having our own space allows us to make an investment into something that then is ours, right? And we get to operate in as many times as we want and get to really turn up the dial on how much we can produce. So it would be incredibly impactful. And so we're chipping away at getting closer to that every day.
Good. And if you have someone listening right now thinking, I want to help, I want to help you build that larger space and help you grow. How can people get involved, whether it's volunteering, donating, or advocating?
Right. Those are all great ways to get involved with our work. We have lots of volunteer opportunities every month. If you go to foodjusticecoalition.org, you can click on the volunteer button and see the volunteer calendar that's out every month. As far as donating, we also have a donate button on our website where, you can donate and just receive a receipt for your donation. Donations are tax deductible since we are a 501c3 organization. And in terms of donation, I want to share one thing for, your kind of everyday donor, that our everyday donors chip in about $15 a month. And it's not much from the outside looking in, but from the inside looking out, I can tell you that $15 a month, it's about 50 cents a day, allows us to produce about 10 to 12 meals. And that's 10 to 12 meals that are going to someone who might be skipping food altogether because
$15 a month?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so, the more you give, the more that compounds, the more it allows us to do.
Sure.
If you're giving, if you're donating $5, that's 2 meals. It doesn't seem like much, but it really adds up when we have hundreds and then thousands of donors. And so we're really proud that we can keep our food cost, our meal cost at $2.50. And even with inflation, we're still at that price point. And your dollars do go really far with us. And so we're taking your $2.50 and turning it into a $10 meal. And for our larger donors, what we've seen from them is they're great about giving us matching funds. And we recently had a large donor give us a $25,000 match, and we raised the other 25 in a matter of 30 days.
Amazing.
We brought in that 50K, and that was like such a lifeline for us at the time.
Yeah.
And so the power of matching funds is just, it's the best. And so if you're able to do that, at any level, whether it's 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, always so appreciated, and it's so powerful. But those $5 donations, also incredible, also really impactful.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about how, most of our clients are facing severe food insecurity, and they're reporting skipping 1 to 2 meals a day at minimum. And that third meal is like a peanut butter and jelly, which is great, but that's not enough, to have good health.
Right.
And so being able to have a really nice, like $10 meal, right, is pretty powerful. And so you can do that with $2.50.
Dang. I think sometimes we think, I may have an extra $5 a month, but that really isn't going to cover much. So I might as well not even bother with it. But it helps. Every cent helps. And like you said, Jeanette, you can make it go so much further with what you guys can do. And if you can't donate money, that's okay as well. You can volunteer. And that looks like we kind of spoke about that, but that's in the kitchen and helping, right?
Yeah. Most of our volunteer shifts are in the kitchen. Another shift that we have every program day is delivering meals. So if you want to have some alone time, but you want to do something impactful, you can get in your car, you can drive some meals to some families. It's anywhere from 2 to 3 hours for every shift. And even if you only do one shift, you're serving 5 to 6 households.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty impactful as well. And if you want to, spend some time with a friend in the car,
sure,
grab a coffee and come pick up some meals and chit chat with your friend in the car while you drop off some meals.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, make it a date, with your friend that you haven't caught up with for a while. Hop in the car, grab some meals, go deliver them. And that's so much better. Because you're doing good.
It is.
Yeah.
It's fun. And you get to, be impactful while you're doing it. And so always need delivery drivers. Every single day we're looking for more. Okay. So that's very helpful. And then, the last thing I would say is if you have resources that you can share with us, or if you can help make a connection or donate in kind, once a month we do go out to a park and we set up and we give out free meals and resources. We give out hygiene kits, we give out clothing, shoes, blankets, sleeping bags, and we have medical personnel on site as well to do, different medical services on site.
So you're doing much more than...
Yeah, we partner with different medical professionals to do this because we are not medical professionals. And so they'll do different types of health screenings, wound care, things like that. And it's anywhere from an ICU nurse to an emergency physician or even surgeons. We have quite a mix. So it's really nice to be able to offer that and for people to come in and get free screenings.
That's phenomenal. Jeanette, that's phenomenal. Thank you for doing all of that too. I didn't realize that. I'm learning that right now about you, that you also offer that. Okay, if there's someone listening right now that is thinking, I am having a really hard time, just being able to feed not only myself, my children, my extended, I mean, if they're thinking I'm glad I'm listening to this right now because I needed this. Mm-hmm. What are the steps for them to make to be able to get a little assistance?
We make it really simple. You go onto our website, foodjusticecoalition.org, and there's a button up at the top that has our application linked. It's a quick application. It takes maybe 5 minutes, 10 at most, but it's available in English and in Spanish. And you just fill that out. And once you fill that out, our staff will review it. You will get approved within about 14 days. And I say you'll get approved because we haven't turned anyone away so far. Well, maybe there was one out of like hundreds because they were outside of our service area. We serve Salt Lake County. And so once your application is approved, you're sent a confirmation email with a link, and then you can just begin ordering meals. So with that link, it takes you to another form where you can make your request. And so you type in, your name and the address that you want your food delivered to, how many meals you want, and it gives you the option to select, the date that you want it delivered. And then it gives you a confirmation saying, we've received your request. And then when the day comes, our volunteers will help prepare the meals with our chef, and then our drivers come in and they pack up your food and they bring it to your door, and they'll send you a text letting you know that your food is at your door, and it's kind of no contact, so they just drop it off and they leave, and you get the text and your food is there, and then you can take your food and eat it right away, or you can put it in your fridge and save it for up to 5 days, or you can freeze it for about 30 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
How quickly can someone get meals? Like if they go on now and they're filling out the form, how quickly?
Right now, it takes about a week at most because we're processing applications pretty quickly. So if we receive your application on a Monday, you'll likely be approved by a Wednesday, and one of our program days is Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you're approved by Wednesday, you can place your meals on Thursday and have them delivered that same Thursday.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Looking ahead, Jeanette, what is your vision for food justice in Utah and for the Food Justice Coalition?
Our vision is, to grow so that we can keep up with the need. And what we would love to do is be able to provide all of our food to the general public so that anyone, regardless of income, can just come have a really good meal for $3 or $4. So that's what we're working on. And, we'll have to come back and share more on that in a few months. But having that space, that shared space where anybody can come in, whether you're a client or whether you're just, live in the neighborhood and you want a good meal, that's part of our vision, as well as making food more accessible, not just our meals, but food in general here locally. And so, we have conversations with our farmers, and we have conversations with our co-ops and farmers who are doing CSA boxes, and being able to, coalition build so that we can do this together is what we're aiming for, because it really it takes all of us.
Yeah.
And so at Food Justice, it just means, we're growing, and we're growing alongside other members in our community who are doing the good work as well.
We can do this together.
Yes.
Together. It's what it takes. Okay, last one. What's one thing that you'd like our listeners to take away from everything you are doing, the work you're doing, the fight against hunger?
I think the one thing I would say in this moment is to learn a little bit about what food looks like in your community and how your dollars can make a shift, especially when, you talk to your friends about it and your family, and you start shifting your economic impact more locally. And that means buying from your local farmers, joining a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And this is where you pay, $40 a month, and you get a box of, big box of like beautiful vegetables from your local farmer. It's good to keep some of that money in the local economy, and to support your small farmers who are just are growing in a way that's like really good for the environment, and
And that's called CSA.
Community Supported Agriculture.
Okay.
Or to buy from a co-op. It's the same thing. You're keeping food local, right? And you're keeping your dollars in the economy. You're supporting small businesses, and you're supporting people who really care about making a just food system that helps get us closer to food sovereignty. And so whatever you can do to learn about that, and it's as simple as doing, a quick internet search and typing in, like local farms around me, or CSA boxes in, my city, or going to your farmer's market and literally just talking to the farmers that are there. They're always happy to chat. They're really friendly people. And so whatever you can do to keep money in your economy and to buy locally and eat locally, it's so much better for your health. It's so much better for the environment, and it's so much better for your local economy.
Thank you for that information. That was wonderful. I appreciate that so much, Jeanette. Okay, where can we go if we're needing a little assistance like we talked about, or if we want to volunteer, we want to donate, we want to help you continue this amazing work? What's the best place to follow, or where should we go?
Yeah, you can find us directly at foodjusticecoalition.org. And our site has all the buttons for anything that you need, whether it's volunteering or donating or something else. We also post events up there. And that's probably the best way to find us directly. We're also on social media. Our handle, I believe, on all platforms is at Food Justice Coalition. We're, I think, most active on Instagram. So if you want to follow us along to kind of keep up to date with what we're doing, we'd love to see you there. And then kind of a broader resource I'd love to leave everyone with is 211. If you're needing help with anything, whether it's food resources or something else, call 211. They will help direct you to the right place for whichever county you're in. We are listed on 211 as well.
You're amazing. Thank you for being here, Jeanette, and helping give us hope. You're a light in our community, and we are grateful for everything that you are doing.
Thank you for the platform.
Of course.
It's a tremendous help.
Thank you for speaking with me. Appreciate you.
Of course.
And thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.